Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. Terraplex Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag-grown technology and support from Terraplex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with Terraplex Ag. Visit TerraplexAg.com.
My name is Joseph Hurst. I live in Ankeny, Iowa, and I'm a part of the PMBA program. I currently work as the Director of Sales at Stony Creek Hotels in Johnston, Iowa, and I chose the Iowa State MBA program because it just made perfect sense. About 2 years ago, I started this wonderful program, and I couldn't imagine not having done it. What has helped the most balance work, life, school, has been the people I'm in class with. It's great to go through questions, problems, study for tests, and it just makes the whole class so much easier. As a working professional thinking about doing an MBA program, I get night classes aren't everybody's dream. I get after a long day of work, you may not want to go do more, but it's worth it. You're going to learn a lot, not just from the professors in the program, but from the other students. They come from all walks of life. They are from different age groups. They're from different companies. They're from all kinds of different backgrounds. They've got all kinds of different stories. And after 2 years, I've made some of the best friends I've ever made, learned the most I've ever learned, and I can't imagine what we're going to do after we're done.
I'm Chris Williams from Cyclone Fanatic, and a proud Iowa State graduate from the class of 2007. No one shows up like Iowa State fans.
And Cyclones support Cyclones on and off the field.
Your gift can provide scholarships to students, fund groundbreaking research. We could even drum up opportunities for the marching band. Visit MoveWhatMatters.com to learn how you can make an impact today.
Chris Williams, Brent Blum, from the Wild Rose Casino Studio. It's Williams and Blum, presented by Mechdyne, on the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network.
What is up? Wednesday, the 5th of February, Williams and Blum, presented, as always, by our friends at Mechdyne. Mechdyne Corporation. We're in the Wild Rose Casino Studios. Busy day is Blum's Big Bash. That's a alliteration.
Yeah. So, you're a poet.
Well, I do.
A modern day Jack Frost. Jack Frost?
No, Jack
right?
Frost.
Jack Frost is the snowman.
Jack
right?
Frost is the guy who walks around tapping on your window.
Who's
around Christmas time?
Who's the poet
Mark
that's
Twain?
a Frost? No, Aiden.
Evan Frost.
It's not Evan Frost.
There is a Frost.
There's a Frost.
Scott Frost.
Different kind of poet.
There's some sort of Frost out there.
Robert.
Robert.
Thank you.
Old Robbie.
Old Rob Frost.
Yeah, so sorry that not a lot of sleep the last couple days. In a good way. But we're ready to go tonight.
Sleeping in a good way. I haven't been. I'm just kidding. Well, we'll get to all the Iowa State basketball talk. A lot of Big 12 talk as well. It was another eventful night in the league on Tuesday. This league is finally coming to fruition what we had hoped it would be. Maybe not from an Iowa State standpoint the last couple of weeks, but it's been highly entertaining.
Yes.
The last couple of weeks.
We got guys slapping each other, ejections.
There's fights, ejections. We got nut kicks. We got upsets. Houston almost I thought they were going to lose to Oklahoma State there for a while.
I know. They
night.
just completely slept walk through that first half.
Man. Anyways, we are so this will be a somewhat abbreviated show, about 45 minutes, because of everything we have going on tonight with the Iowa State, the We Will event for football, which is the number one fundraiser of the year, right?
Yeah. Operation 300,000 tonight, everybody. And so real quick. I We will put it out on socials here momentarily. So check out my social, check out the Weibo Collective social. We have an online auction as part of this as well that will open tonight after the event at 9 o'clock and run for a week. So everybody nationwide can participate.
That's great.
And one of the cool things, you see over my shoulder the Ames Lager, they just actually donated a brewery experience for a day where you can be a brewer for a day up at Ames Lager in Westoe with 8 of your friends. So some unique experiences out there. Got some helmets. Those are the helmets. All 5 of those babies are available. The Cyclone script helmets on the online auction. So some really good stuff, guys. And again, we're trying to keep up as much as we can and trying to keep everybody nationwide involved. And Chris, I know you spent some time with Coach Campbell here recently. And, man, my motto right now is do everything we can to help that staff out, to keep those guys and keep this thing going.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, he's just more impressive every time you talk to him. He's like a bottle of wine. He gets better every year because just navigating through all this stuff. It's just you don't want to like fearmonger. I do wonder like where Iowa State would be had they not had been solid at the top during this era. Like there really has not been any fluctuation in any of the big sports, and that's been huge. And no better example than Matt Campbell. So hopefully we'll raise a lot of money tonight. Looking forward to that. And you can follow. Sure, We Will Collective. We'll have all the links and stuff sent out.
My Twitter as well. Yep.
Once those auctions are live. Iowa State goes to Kansas. I gave my reaction to this on Monday night after the game, Bloom. And I didn't watch it back, but I had the same thought 48 hours after the fact or whatever it is, 36 hours. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Iowa State couldn't throw a rock into the ocean in Allen Fieldhouse. And I know the reaction I'm going to get from a good chunk of the fan base here, but I do think in a weird way they took a step in the right direction on Monday night with cutting down the turnovers. They definitely competed on the glass.
No doubt.
I think that they had a terrible shooting night, and I think that Kansas was really good. And you don't want to lose by 20. But I do think where they were, like I think that a step forward was taken. And I could see this team getting hot. I think Momcilovic will be back sooner rather than later. And I also think that the staff made some adjustments they didn't just cut down on turnovers. Offensively, they played differently. They weren't forcing as much into the lane. They were, taking more threes. They had a lot of good looks. They tried
to shoot more threes. It just weren't going in.
And like the one thing I look at is like a lot of this stuff. I don't know if it's fixable. Like Heisey doesn't want the ball. Like, and I don't want to like single him out because he's just getting killed. But the 4-on-5 thing is very real at parts with this offense. But there's a lot of this stuff. It's like the open threes. Well, they're going to make more than 3 of 21 on most nights. And like I think Joshua Jefferson right now is just in a funk that I fully believe he'll kick out of. Like he's just missed a lot of bunnies around the basket.
He's too good.
Yeah. Like so I'm choosing that. I do see some improvement on Monday night, as hard as it is to believe if you watch that game, and because it's brutal when your team just can't make a shot. But they're not going to be that poor offensively, like shooting wise, every night. What do you think?
Yeah, clearly not the result anybody wanted. 52 points, just not going to do it against anybody. That was reminiscent of a lot of games from years gone by. And I think the obvious thing, and everybody sees it, is you have one shot attempt from your bench. Like one shot attempt. And they're not getting anything offensively off the bench. And, the hope is when Milan comes back, that changes that. You probably move Curtis back to the bench, and that provides some firepower. Regardless, so that is a concern for me right now, is you got to get some more from there, even with Milan. Nate, Brant, DeMarion, obviously Curtis will move back there, get something going there. But I agree, C-Dub. I think some of the panic online and on the message boards of, oh, this team needs a leader, all that. This isn't a situation like the when the Shayok year, when there was literally fights in the locker room. Right? There's none of that. There's zero. Like, I'm telling you, there's none of that. These these guys are doing fine. They're just in a rough basketball stretch, and that happens. I was thinking back last night of how much differently do we feel about this if the Arizona game goes differently, and I think what really is bumming people out right now is the K-State game.
Yeah,
I don't
no
think
doubt.
there's
Absolutely.
that is what's causing so much consternation. It was
doubt.
the fact you got completely worked in that game, and it made this whole thing seem 10 times worse. If Iowa State wins that game, everyone's like, okay, well, you lost road games at Arizona and Kansas. We thought that could happen anyway. The K-State game is really throwing everybody for a loop, and I understand why. It makes it seem like it's a pattern when it may just be an outlier. That's why I think it's important for this team to get back on track. I agree. The turnovers were a lot better. The offense is stuck, but you got to keep in mind Kansas is a top 5 defense, and they were amped up.
They were hyper-motivated.
They were ready to go. It was a terrible spot to play them in that atmosphere, and they brought it. And those guys, when they play that well, what have we talked about? Like, Iowa State, when it plays Kansas, Houston, Arizona's of the world, and even K-State, like, I'm going to throw them in there because they got guys. Iowa State can't just out-athlete people. And that has been the problem here in this stretch, is Iowa State has to out-skill people when you're playing these really good teams, and right now they can't make a shot. And so you're stuck between, I can't get to the rim because I can't out-athlete you, and I'm not making a shot either. So what do you do? And it's just kind of causes this cycle of you're not doing much, and then the confidence goes away, and the confidence started to affect the defense at times in the K-State game, and yada, yada, yada. I thought defensively Iowa State was really good, honestly, at times Monday. Rebounding was better. Turnovers were better. It's just they need some scoring punch. And once that ball goes in a couple of times, I think this team could get back on track really quickly because they got the guys. Lingering concerns, bench production, and Taman's been awesome. But, man, you start worried about his health too because he's been so good that, what we've seen from this team is if there's another injury, knock on wood, it's, this team maybe isn't as deep as once expected. So they need all these guys to stay healthy.
It's certainly not as Big 12 deep as we thought it was a month ago.
Correct. And I think that is kind of coming to light. And what I always say is give credit to the other guy too. Kansas played a great game, and Kansas, when it's on, is clearly really good. And they wanted to be there on Monday, and they played great. And for Iowa State, you got to start you cannot let that turn into another bad effort on Saturday. Effort has to be off the charts Saturday.
I thought the effort was good on Monday.
I did too.
Yeah.
I 100% did. This was not an effort thing.
I did not in the Kansas State game, and I think that's what bothered fans mostly.
Yes.
Because that's where, I mean, I can just see it now. I'm going to get tweeted at by just random people about it, just being an odds homer and all this stuff. But, like, that the Kansas game, I don't know, like, give me those shots again, and what Iowa State at 52, you could really easily turn that into 75, right? Like, and just nothing's different other than some shots fall, right? And that alone is not the answer, but if you watched it closely, how they attacked Kansas was different. They weren't just, and it wasn't perfect. I think there's still adjustments to be made, but the mindset going into that game was, and I hope everybody watched the Seth Greenberg breakdown pregame on what Kansas State had done to Iowa State on Saturday. When these teams are packing the paint, they're back in the rim, and Iowa State kept, early in the year, if you remember when they were playing really well, they weren't shooting a ton of threes.
No.
Some of Iowa State's best offensive games were 13, 14, 15 3-point
Which
attempts.
is crazy low for this era. Yep.
Correct. So,
and they were really good at it.
And the reason they were doing that, though, is because it was so easy to get to the basket with really good downhill players, Keyshawn, Taman, and Curtis.
when you had two guys in the corner that
Yes.
that were taking attention away.
because it took the spacing. Well, now the spacing isn't there, and Iowa State was still trying to get to the rim in that way. Well, when you got into the lane, the defense was just attacking. They were just in attack mode, and that's where all these turnovers were coming from. Because Iowa State's guys weren't getting rid of the ball one way or another. They were forcing it. The game plan on Monday, in my mind, watching it, was simple. We're not doing that anymore, and we're gonna take a 3 instead because we think that, like, if 10 more possessions, we're just shooting a 3, and we're gonna turn it over 8 fewer times, it's gonna result in fewer live ball turnovers, and we're probably gonna make a few of these threes.
And you're going to rebound or two.
Yeah.
By the way.
But the problem is you didn't make any shots.
You did not.
So it didn't work. But my point is the actual plan itself did cut down on the turnovers. You rebounded a lot better. I didn't think it was an effort loss. I think you just had a terrible offensive night, and you got your butt kicked by a team that was really fired up. Maybe played its best game of the year.
No, I think Kansas did. Yeah, I mean,
what do you think of that, though? Like, that's my read on this offense.
It's 100%. That's exactly the situation. Iowa State got away early, and listen, give me a 2 at the rim over a 3 with this group, like, every day of the week. This team isn't a great 3-point shooting team. That is obvious. You become a below average 3-point shooting team when you don't have Milan. So, teams finally figured that out. Like, it's still crazy to me what UCF was doing. Like, that game gets more of an outlier by the day of how they decided to guard Iowa State.
And that game's a little more, honestly, that would be a game that scares me coming up in this next stretch because it's like you hope Iowa State can get hot here. I don't know. Is Johnny Hawk, he's not dumb enough to do that again. Like that, like, that's the thing. Like, we said that the day after that game. If people listen to our show, I was like, it's the most inexplicable game plan I've ever seen anybody take into Hilton Coliseum. And it was a little fool's gold after
absolutely
the injury.
It almost turned into in a weird way, a negative thing because it was so easy that night that Iowa State didn't have to work on movement or getting people open or finding good looks. It was like literally they got layup after layup, ended up being a negative potentially. Great point. And I think this is where this is the growth of this team is, okay, now these teams have adjusted. Now it's your turn to adjust to that adjustment. And it's the old Bill Fennelly saying, shoot it before you turn it over, honestly. And when you have Jackson, Chatfield, and Jefferson, they're really good rebounders. Watson as well. Get it on the rim. Even if you miss, you got a chance to rebound it. And I thought Iowa State did a nice job of that, but you can't go 3 of 21 against anybody. I mean, I think you look at you can break down each of these losses into tiers. West Virginia and Kansas were poor offensive games, the whole thing, missed everything.
Mm-hmm.
K-State was a no-show, complete no-show. It's the worst of the bunch. Mm-hmm. Arizona played really well.
Played well enough to
Played
win.
really well, and you lost on a basketball play. Everything's a little bit different, but what we're seeing here is the sooner Momcilovic can get back, the better, because these coaches are too good, and they are just absolutely suffocating Iowa State with really athletic guards that Iowa State didn't see up until this point, and you can't just out-athlete people. Iowa State's got good players, but not as good as, honestly, the high-priced talent at Kansas and K-State when it comes to that, Arizona. So this is the next iteration, and it's hard to just kind of create ball movement overnight. Iowa State did a better job. Still not great Monday night, but I'm not panicked.
It wasn't perfect.
I'm not panicked. I'm really not. No, maybe that makes me a Kool-Aid drinker. I'm not. I'm just not concerned. I think these guys will be okay. But Saturday's a big game for a lot of reasons. You got to play well in this game to kind of get the good vibes going. Because okay, let's look at big picture now. C-Dub, you're dropping in the ratings. Not just rankings from the polls, but your net rankings dropping, your Ken Palm's dropping. At a lot of places, you fall into a low 2, maybe even a 3 seed in some spots. This isn't, I talked about for a while, Iowa State would probably be a 2 seed unless the wheels come off. Well, the wheels are off, but you've lost one right now, and that was the K-State loss. Like, that was a wheel. That was one of the wheels that came off.
Yeah.
And you can't afford more wheels to come off and expect to still be a 2 seed. It's still very much out there. The 1 seed at this point will be a stretch just based on how well those top 4 are playing. But I still think this team's going to be okay. I think it's going to be okay. It's just you got to get some confidence going. and that should start Saturday.
Thought Bill Self's comment after the game was pretty accurate too. I think he said something like everybody goes through it. And Iowa State's in it right now. And what we get too is like I'm seeing a lot of this. Well, really good teams can bounce back from an injury and it doesn't phase them. Maybe, I would also say that there's usually an adjustment period when it comes to that. Like Momcilovic was the one guy, and I didn't at least recognize this enough when he got hurt initially. But he's the one unique player that they really had.
Totally.
Him and Jefferson would be the two,
Yep.
right? Like that.
Yep.
There's nobody else. You can't just pop Heisey in there and say, "Oh, act like Momcilovic or Watson or any of them." And when we say the fool's gold thing, so you go out and beat Kansas by 17. Well, nobody had scouted you without them yet, and that was just like you found out that day, and you go out and win in a crazy home environment.
You made 8 out of 13 threes that day.
Yeah. The Central Florida game is what it was. Arizona State was a miraculous performance by Curtis. Otherwise, you really should have lost that game.
It's fair.
If we're being honest. And, these teams start adjusting, and now Iowa State's making a counter adjustment, and, you shoot like crap. Well, we'll see. I do think that I think they're going to kill TCU. We'll see what happens beyond that. Just this team is too good to just to stay on the deck. Like my guess would be this is another like Jefferson 25-10 and like type game coming up on Saturday. He's too good to keep in this slump that he's in, and I also think there's a little bit of I use this with Aiden. You've seen Days of Thunder, right?
I've seen it.
The scene where
I like how all of your references go back to bad late 80s movies, but continue on.
Cole Trickle and his crew chief are sitting there, and they're doing the test at North Wilkesboro, and the crew chief says, "Hey, all right, I'm going to let you go run 100 laps the way you want to run it, and then we're going to change tires, and we're going to run 100 laps the way I want you to run it." And part of me thinks that there's a little bit of this with the defense, specifically in that Kansas State game.
Yes.
Where the head coach was like, all right, guys, go out and run the 100 laps the way you want to run it, and you get your doors blown off. So at the end of this scene, the tires are all like, they're basically like on fire because he destroys his tires. And then when he does it the way the crew chief wants to run it, the tires look great, and he's like 18 seconds faster. And part of me is, after all of this, there's going to be – I don't think they got away from their defensive mentality, but I do think that when Otz is saying in postgame, pretty meticulous when he makes specific comments,
Yep.
I believe.
Yep.
When he's talking about how we're letting our offensive stats impact our defensive effort and performance, that was pretty targeted to me. And I don't know. My hope – nothing is a guarantee. My hope is at the end of this stretch, it's Cole Trickle's tires are on fire, and they're going to start listening to the crew chief again.
Yeah, and turning over Kansas 13 times and good ball handlers with Mayo and Harris was nice, especially on the road.
They were more active in the perimeter defense.
I
for
thought
sure.
so too, and you held. I thought Kansas played great, and you held them to, one of their season lows in points. Again, still got beat by 20, like whatever. TCU though, I mean, this is a team coming in that is not great at offense. They take care of the ball okay. They struggle, C-Dub, to shoot the ball. A really, really bad shooting team. So this is a game where if that defense is good and you make them uncomfortable, man, yeah, I agree, C-Dub. I think this could be, if I'm TJ, I'm saying, hey, guys, we're going back to old school. We're holding these guys to 16 under. Mm-hmm. Let's win this game 75-60. Let's just choke them out. Get your UFC fights on pregame type of thing. You got game day in town, which is, by the way, really cool that Iowa State's getting game day. It just says a lot about the fan base and Iowa State's reputation. I know, the vibes aren't great right now, but having game day in town is awesome marketing. So please get there if you can.
Yeah.
But it's just getting back to what you can do. And I think there was that stretch there where Momcilovic gets hurt, you kick the crap out of Kansas, and you're like, okay, we're going to be fine. And there was just this fool's gold's the right way. Like, you got lulled into the sense that we can keep doing the same thing. If somebody else adjusted, now it's on you to figure it out. And Iowa State is learning the hard way. If you don't do it, this is what can happen. And now it's on them to figure it out. But from a culture standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, these guys are still together. They're still, this team is still really good. They're not going to fold, and I expect big things out of them entirely. The 1 seed might be tough to get now. I'm not ignoring that fact, but I still have a lot of belief in these guys, and I'm excited to see them on Saturday.
Blum, we have a new sponsor on the show, and I want you to teach me about this because I don't know much about this particular company, but I'm very interested in it. You're bringing them on board. What can you tell me about FanStake?
Yeah, so these guys, this is some cool stuff. This is some cutting-edge stuff. So I get to work with NIL opportunities a lot, and we are usually very selective with the ones that we'll actually talk to.
Yep.
But so these guys, just to kind of give you some background, some Silicon Valley guys that started this, and just like we always talk about on here, the best thing I think for fans is transparency in this world of NIL. And so FanStake is a company that has just launched here in the last couple of months. And what this does, it enables college sports fans to directly support athletes and influence athletes and retention by literally pledging money. You can be the GM, everybody. Everyone, I got some messages after this weekend of, hey, why did you spend money on that guy? You can literally control who Iowa State retains and targets. It's really cool. It's literally direct to them. And you might feel, that's kind of weird, isn't it? It is, in a way, but also it directly influences retention for programs like Iowa State. Because in our world, we can never usually compete necessarily with the recruiting standpoint of poaching guys, but we can really do a good job of showing love to our current guys. So as a fan, you can see it already on YouTube. Some Iowa State fans have already put in some support for the Cyclones on the basketball roster. The portal does open in late March. And so you can directly pledge to support your guys. And if your guy stays with Iowa State, they get awarded a NIL deal with FanStake, is how it works. The really cool part is if the player that you support decides to go somewhere else, you get your money back. So you so you only spend money, you only lose your money if the guy stays with your team.
This is wild.
So it puts you in the GM chair, and it allows transparency, but more than anything, C-Dub, what it does, it shows your current guys how much love there is in the fan base for them. And so it's a really unique way, and because these guys are awesome, and they've been great partners. So this is
like up and running. They can go and do this now.
You can do that right now.
Wow.
Yep. So fanstake.com, search for the Iowa State players. But here's the cool part. And it's very secure, high-tech stuff. But because we want to keep these guys intact on the football and the basketball side, FanStake is offering every Cyclone fan that signs up to get a free $25 to help the Cyclones retain talent.
Wow.
All you need to do is put in the code Cyclone to show your support for Iowa State, and get $25 free that can be used. Think about the thousands of people that listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
If each of you have $25 to spend in FanStake on Iowa State guys, do the math, everybody. And so I think these guys are legit. I think it's a really unique way to show your love for the players, straightforward for the guys you want to support, and it takes some of the transparency. It brings some transparency to what I think should be in the NIL world. So really cool product.
First thing that comes to my mind is when Conradi hits that kick against Iowa.
Exactly.
How much money that guy would have made on FanStake.
Well, and again, it allows you to, and the cool thing is if they, if you get a Tyler Onyedem situation, and he goes to A&M, you get your money back.
That's really cool.
It's risk free in a lot of ways, and it's just a way for folks to. And this company has been really, really neat to work with, and we're one of the first schools they've kind of partnered with here in some ways, or at least invested in. And so we can kind of get a head start on everybody else by jumping in here on fanstake.com.
Cool. Fansteak.com. Check it out. We appreciate their sponsorship of Williams and Blum here on Cyclone Fanatic. Let's dive right into our Wiffles Hybrids Big 12 segment, because this is going to be a longer one today. Plant your independence, plant Wiffles.
Well, I'll just say real quick, this is totally separate of the collective. So any of the dollars from Fanstake is over and above what these guys would get, and it'd be an actual NIL deal with Fanstake. So again, even better, because it's essentially extra incentive for those players.
So like real name, image, and
and likeness stuff. Yep,
I like
exactly.
that. Yeah. Kansas State won again.
Look out.
They won at Arizona State last night, 71-70. They're 5-6 now in the league. It's going to be an uphill battle still for them to make the NCAA tournament, but I don't think there's any question. Like if you were to power rate the teams in the last 2 weeks of the Big 12 season, Kansas State is maybe a top 3 to 4 team in this league right now. It doesn't make me feel any better about what happened last Saturday, but it is notable. And they get Kansas at home this week, Brent, coming up on Saturday. Remember when nobody was even going to their games not that long ago? They had lost 7 of 8. Now all of a sudden, Kansas State is on a 4-game win streak, and they have 2 home games coming up, Brent. A Saturday, Tuesday against Kansas and Arizona. So watch out.
If they win both those games, they're
firmly on the bubble if they win those games, right?
They may be, I'd say definitely on the bubble. They might be on the bubble now. I'm just looking, C-Dub, net ranking still not great at 79, but that has climbed all the way from 105, 110 a couple weeks back. So they are. I mean, this is crazy. I don't remember something like this in a long, long time.
Well, they were just so bad.
They were so bad.
It looked like the whole thing was done. It looked like high-price roster, not engaged, coach not reaching the players, and just buckle up, because it seemed like on Saturday after Iowa State lost, you guys are just trying to put lipstick. No, they're playing really well. If you look at their analytics over the last month.
You don't fluke your way into 4 wins in a row in the Big 12. You just don't.
Oh, and 2 of them on the road, and 1 of them against a top 25 team, right? So the Oklahoma State game's kind of like whatever. They snap a 26-game win streak in Hilton Coliseum. This is impressive. Now, again, they get Kansas and Arizona coming up next.
Yeah,
I would guess that they're going to be. I don't know if they'll be favored over Kansas, but it'll be pretty close. I'll pull that up for you now.
Because we said on Sunday that, hey, take the Wildcats against the Sun Devils, and man, people did that. But made 10 threes again, K-State. So not only are they playing harder, they're making shots. So back to our Iowa State discussion.
Well, remember too my advice that I gave you on Sunday to just start betting them blindly because the analytics haven't caught up.
They haven't. I don't know if they will by Saturday.
No. What do you think the line will be? Guess the point spread.
Oh, thank you, Aiden. Kansas 5.
Kansas 6. You play Kansas State. You play them on the money line too. You put a unit on the spread. You put a unit on the money line.
That place is going to be nuts. Great point about the crowd support. Was dead. It was dead. They've revived it. That'll be banged out in Bramlage.
Let me point this out for you.
Yeah.
Guess the point spread. Tuesday, Arizona at Kansas State.
Arizona 2.
Arizona 5. You bet Kansas State.
Gosh.
You bet the money line, and you bet the point spread. You bet them each. You do a unit on the spread and do a half unit on the money line. In these
I
games.
just say I like Bill Self in that spot just because Bill Self is elite and taking his team in there. I think that's going to be a fun game Saturday. I think Arizona loses to K-State on Tuesday for sure.
This is where I say, though, the analytics haven't caught up. Kansas State will be a dog at BYU, which is fine on the 15th. That's hard. Yep. They're a 2-point underdog right now at Utah on Monday.
No, they'll win that game.
That's my point. You just keep an eye. Now, if they go off and beat Kansas and Arizona, this is all going to change. Things are going to catch up. But This is what I love about college basketball.
Yes.
And I don't bet it much. Like I really don't, because I don't have time, and it's just like it. You can find these pockets, and you probably could have identified it with Iowa State like a week and a half ago if you were like. Really, the Arizona State game was the telling one, but then they should have won against Arizona. We've covered all this, but you can find these little pockets where there's just a ton of value on a team, and Kansas State is that one right now.
Well, and just go look at their numbers. We kind of overcomplicate basketball sometimes, and you assume like, oh my gosh, what is wrong? We're terrible, like all this stuff. There's culture problems. Here's Kansas's numbers from 3 in the last. K-State's numbers from 3 the last 4 games against West Virginia, 6 of 17, Oklahoma State, 12 of 23, Iowa State, 10 of 20, Arizona State, 10 of 23. They're just shooting the ball better.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, at the end of the day, the ball goes in the basket, right? Like, it gets a lot easier when it's going in, and your defense gets better, guys feel better about it, your movement gets better, and sometimes it's that easy. It's just seeing the ball go in has this amplifying effect, and Iowa State's seeing the other end of it when it's not going in.
Yeah.
And K-State's just playing. They always had the guys. They've always had the guys, and I just think it's a unique situation right now with how they've grown and may continue to grow here. They're a fascinating subplot.
Yeah. We'll keep an eye on them. That's probably a game I got circled.
What time is that one?
Aiden, will you pull that up? Will you pull up Saturdays? That'd be great. I don't know. They don't list the times on KenPom, but I will be.
Come on, Kenneth. You do everything else, pal. Put the game times on.
Well, wait a minute. They do. I'm sorry. Oh, this is never mind. It's got like every game in the country. I don't have time for this. We're live right now. Real quick before we continue on, I thank the rest of our great sponsors for Williams and Blum Wednesday. I want to thank my friends over at Game Day Men's Health. Blum, you were telling me you're down 11 pounds.
11 pounds.
Congratulations,
How about
buddy.
that? Yeah, thank you. That's been
awesome.
Like the real deal. That's
really great, man.
I kind of like you. I hit forward. I'm like, okay,
Don't be an idiot.
I'm not 22 anymore. I can't eat like I used to. And you saw I used to eat back in the day.
I was with John Haycock yesterday, and he was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I got the tea."
Got the tea? It's been great. I
Need
can't
more tea.
I can't recommend it enough, honestly.
Also want to thank our friends at Gravitate Co-working. Check them out at gravitatecoworking.com. I actually have a meeting coming up there, and I recommended we all meet at Gravitate, so we'll see if that happens with some folks who are coming from out of town. Gravitatecoworking.com, all their co-working locations around the great state of Iowa and in the Des Moines metro. Also, Kelderman Manufacturing. This is so funny. Kelderman was FaceTiming. I was asleep. He was in California at an Aaron Lewis concert.
Of course.
He likes to FaceTime me because he's friends with Aaron Lewis, the country singer. And he has that song about I Ain't Made in China. You know that song?
No.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, Kelderman FaceTimes me every time Aaron Lewis plays the song. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. Jeff, I'm in bed.
But I'm not made in China.
I love him. Kelderman.com.
He's the best.
Check out his YouTube page. You guys laugh. He's coming tonight. We'll see Kelderman tonight at the We Will event. And last but certainly not least, our friends at the Iowa State University Foundation. Go to MoveWhatMatters.com, and you can support anywhere you want on the campus of Iowa State University. You can support undernourished students, as we've talked about. You can support the marching band like I do. Huge band guy.
Band guys.
You could support our friends at the Ivy College of Business at Iowa State anywhere you want. The Companion Animal Fund is one of my favorites with the veterinary medicine. We have an iconic vet med school out there. Shout out to vet med and all those. And those kids that are running that hospital out there and working with the doctors, they work their butts off for nothing, just for experience, and they do great work for our animals. We're really lucky to have that right up the road here from where we live. So anyways, shout out to our friends at the Iowa State University Foundation doing great work. Be a more well-rounded Cyclone. Go to MoveWhatMatters.com. Elsewhere in the Big 12, here's that schedule for Saturday.
Girl, that Kansas game's right after. Okay.
Shoot.
Well, we can find a local watering hole in Ames.
We're going to have to. You know, I'm just going to have to meet you for the second half.
Okay. Welch Ave? Question mark?
I'll meet you at Welch Ave.
All right.
You got UCF at Baylor, Houston, Colorado.
Yeah.
Houston, we'll get to them.
Yeah.
Utah, West Virginia, BYU, Cincinnati. Tech at Arizona, that's the game. 9 o'clock tip.
Tech. Man,
that's the game.
Tech has passed Iowa State in the metrics, everybody.
Probably rightfully so.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
not arguing with it.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
so C-Dub, why do I say that? Got to keep in mind, we got a couple things not going in Iowa State's favor outside of, and this is what happens when you lose 3 games in a row. The seed line starts to get impacted. But what does seed line mean? Then your location gets impacted. And, what I'm looking at now is that Milwaukee situation. Okay, there's the 2 closest for Iowa State. This is where, my mind goes, are Milwaukee and Wichita. Well, you look at the top teams now. Kansas has now jumped Iowa State in the net. So they're most likely in Wichita. And then Purdue has jumped Iowa State as well. Their closest site would be Milwaukee. Illinois is in the mix with Iowa State. They might go to Milwaukee. And so you start looking here. It's like, all right, do you get bumped then from Milwaukee and or Wichita if you don't get out of this thing? And that's where the tournament can really be impactful. We saw it for Iowa State and Omaha. Iowa State had 60% of that building last March, and it was a huge help when things got hard. If you're in somewhere else and not up the road with a fan base at Milwaukee or Wichita, it's not going to be as easy. And so just keep that in mind, and that's why,
especially if you're playing a de facto road game,
that's the other, and then not to mention that the opponents get harder too as your seed drops to a 3 or a 4. So gotta stay, you gotta get going here. You just gotta get going for a number of different ways.
Speaking of teams that are in a weird stretch, I think Houston should be in this conversation. Yes. Last night's game was one of the more shocking. They beat Oklahoma State by 9.
Yep.
It looked like they may lose that game for just a little bit in the first half. So, I really like whoever does Houston's social media feed. I think does a really good job. The Houston basketball social feed tweeted out after the game, the most important bye week or off day of the season is tomorrow. Basically just saying, we are all gassed.
Yeah.
Which I kind of appreciate. I thought it was funny. It's a nice breath of fresh air. But I don't know. I expect them to bounce back. And, Colorado's horrible. But maybe they're not as invincible as we thought they were. They do have a tough stretch coming up because they have Baylor, at Arizona State, and then they get Iowa State and have to go Texas Tech. So, we're going to learn a lot about the Cougs here in the next 2 weeks.
And here's what I'd say. Houston and Iowa State in a similar vein, when you rely on being tougher, more physical, more aggressive, just outlasting people, when you get tired, it impacts you double. You can't just – and they're not as fresh. And look at the numbers they've given out. They haven't been as good defensively. They haven't been good on the glass. They haven't been turning over teams as much, a lot like Iowa State. So they'll get out of it. They're going to be fine. But it just goes to show nobody's invincible here. They're not, they're not light years better. The only team that's been light years better than everybody's been Auburn, and they've been just killing people, which is crazy. Duke to an extent, but even they struggle with a Wake and an NC State. This isn't the mid-'90s where teams are just way better than everybody else. These teams can be pretty similar, and the reliance on the three-point shot is a great equalizer in that context as well.
The other scores from last night, I don't really want to go game by game, but just Arizona keeps winning.
Great win. That was a great win for them. They gutted that one out.
One of the ones we kind of had question for them was at BYU because it's just such a tough place to play. And, I hope that we kind of look smart there because we've pegged them for months now that we thought that they were a threat here despite their slow start, and they are proving to be that.
They've now jumped Iowa State in the net rankings. So
another example
of they're hitting their stride at the right time. also, they thought the world was falling apart when they lost a couple of games in November, December. They figured it out, they adjusted, and now they're cooking.
And their only loss in the league was at Tech.
Crazy.
So it's not like they've got some weird. They get Tech at home this Saturday night, so that'll be the get your butts at home 9:00. Grab yourself a bottle of Cody Road and open it up and watch that one.
That's gonna be fun. I am Case.
You want to come over for that one?
I do. I think the Tech coach is getting my vote for Coach of the Year. I think he's done an awesome job. I really do. I mean, I really like that team right now. I think Tech has been a fun story with how they've put it together. So, I think yes, that's gonna be a fun one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and they have good wins too. They're not just beating up on like a bad aspect of the conference either.
Nope.
Like they've got a lot of road wins here. They do have dates with Houston coming up. Again, we mentioned the Tech game, and then they got to go to Kansas and to Iowa State still. So they're going to get tested. They're not going to finish this thing with one Big 12 loss.
No.
But
no. And honestly, they're going to have a skid.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree.
What you want that skid in March or February, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm putting my optimist hat on. Like, go through your tough time now, please.
Let's touch on the women and then wrap this thing up. Will you run down? So last week they were kind of like they're still a bubble team, right?
Yes,
like, is that how you would describe
very much a bubble team?
Iowa State women? What has to happen in your mind for them to make the tournament? It sucks that we're having this conversation and not be a 1 or a 2 seed, but we were hoping for. But it is where they are. I thought that they played pretty well against TCU, a really good TCU team. But they held the big girl to nothing, and still couldn't So that was disappointing that they couldn't take advantage of that. But I every time I watch them, I think they're about to turn the corner, and then something happens, and they take a step back. Where are you at on the women?
Yeah, well, my quick read is just the guard play has not been good enough.
Yeah.
And it kind of got lost because it happened in the busy stretch.
Boy, Addie Brown's having a hell of a year.
She's
though.
been great.
Yeah.
She's been awesome.
Jeez.
Like she is a first team all Big 12 good, and she's doing it on every end. She's been great. And I say that there are the guards are. There are performances that have been really good. Like AJ's defense, Ariana Jackson's defense has been awesome. She's been steady. But you're dealing with a couple things. It didn't get noticed, but Kenzie Hare getting hurt was a way bigger deal, turns out, a lot like Momcilovic, than everyone anticipated. Because she was kind of the one player that Iowa State could have attack off the dribble. And Iowa State is just really boxed in right now with its offense. They just don't have a lot going to the rim outside of Brown and Crooks. Nobody seems to be able to make a shot, and it just feels station to station in a lot of ways. That said, they're still 40th in the net. They'd be in the tournament, in my opinion, if it ended today. And they have a chance now to get going here. They get at Cincinnati tonight, got to have it. Colorado, home Saturday, got to have it. And then at Kansas. Kansas is very average. Houston's bad. So
they get on a run here.
Yes. Yeah. And then, again, 40th in the net. You're on the bubble. I think you're on the best side of the bubble here. But you reel off 4 in a row here, C-Dub, then you're back and in really comfortable spot. They just need something else outside of Crooks and Brown. And I think here's what else. I think Audie's been the last couple weeks has been a lot better defensively and rebounding wise. There was a stretch there where it wasn't great, but I think everybody would feel better if somebody else stepped up and made some shots. Whether that's Tanky, is it is Hansford coming, Harris?
Man,
I mean they've
that last weekend or a week and a half ago. I was like that's
what they need.
To me, that's what they've missed, and you didn't get that because of the injury. And Hansford really, I mean, for what she was at Oregon State, has not been a shell of that at Iowa State for one reason or another. And it was like, man, if you can get her going, it changes the entire team.
Basketball's, we can overcomplicate it. The ball's got to go in. The ball's just not going in. You got to make some shots, and then they just don't have the downhill to get away from having a skid from the 3-point line. They got to make shots. If they want to be productive, they have to make shots, and that's what makes it extra frustrating for them is they don't have a really option B or C. It's either inside with Brown and Crooks or make some threes. the intermediate stuff really isn't there right now. Emily's health is not helping. She's doing everything she can, but yeah, I think they're going to get back on track. It's been rough. It's been rough, but I would also say, C-Dub, the conference is better than everyone anticipated too. TCU's really good. Oklahoma State's way better than anticipated. Utah's had some nice wins. So, just like we've seen on the men's game, everything kind of drifts to the middle at this point in the season, and it comes down to scouting and making shots.
Brent, thank you. Been a busy week. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll be back on Super Bowl Sunday. Can we record early on Sunday? I don't really want to record during the Super Bowl, do you?
Well, Brock's not playing in, so we're good, right?
Oh, yeah, we don't even need to pay attention to it. You're right. No Cyclones in the Super Bowl this year.
Do we have any? None, right?
I don't think so. I was thinking about that yesterday. Yeah, I don't think so. Mechdyne is our presenting sponsor. We appreciate them so much. Aiden Wyatt produces on Wednesdays. We appreciate him. For Brent Blum, my name is Chris Williams. Back on Sunday. Hopefully Iowa State can snap this losing streak coming up on Saturday against TCU.